Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Thursday, August 10th, 2023. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you, as well as a surprise gift that I received in the mail and an update on how some of the things that I entered in our county fair did. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I have a few finished objects to share with you all today. The first is this Venation shawl. And I am so pleased with how it turned out. This is a beautiful design by Ambah O'Brien, and I've been working on this for a couple of months. I started it on May 26th and just finished it on August 7th. And I used a set of 10 mini skeins that my cousin Allie dyed for me as a gift. And then she has a set for herself as well, and she and I we're both working on this at the same time. We started it about the same time, but she hasn't quite finished hers yet. So anyway, I just love it so much. So I had 10 20-gram minis that she dyed in this beautiful gradient that goes from this dark indigo purple into some pink colors, and then fades into this deep burgundy. Now this last color I actually over dyed a little bit, because in my last 2 skeins that she sent me, I couldn't tell the difference between the last 2. I thought, to my eye, I couldn't tell the difference between them. And so I asked her, would you mind if I just over dyed the last one to be a little bit darker so that I just wanted there to be more of a variation. So I just over dyed that last mini skein with a bit of black dye. And I like the contrast that gave it. Last time I recorded, I was in this mauve section. So I was pretty much kind of like around the halfway point, because I was on the 6th of 10 mini skeins. So I was able to finish up the second half of this pretty quickly. And I'm so pleased with it. It's such a nice shawl, and I can definitely maybe see me making this again sometime, and just using up some mini skeins that I have laying around and see if I can kind of make up my own gradient set. I think that would be super fun. So I used the recommended needles, which were US 5 3.75 millimeter needles, and I did not make any changes to the pattern at all. So it is a very simple pattern. It's now I can't remember. It's an 8-row repeat, basically. Some of the repeats change as you increase and decrease, of course, but for the most part, you're doing basically the same 8 rows over and over again. And so it was easy to memorize the pattern very quickly. So I like the transitions as you fade the colors into each other. They're pretty quick transitions, but I just think it's really effective and beautiful. And it's really more of a scarf shape than a typical shawl shape, because it is so long. I measured it, and it measures 9 feet long. But of course, as you can see, it's not very deep. This is the deepest point. But it works really well just to wrap around. And if I just put it over my shoulders, it hangs so low though. It goes past my knees when I just put it over my shoulders. So it's probably a better suited to be wrapped around either just once like this, but the tails still hang past my waistline like that. I also can wrap it around twice, and then I could kind of tie the tails here together to get more of a, I've got to play with it some more. Get more of this type of a look, which I think is pretty cute. But it would be so much fun to just play around with the different, your own scraps of yarn. If you have a bunch of, it wouldn't have to be mini skeins. It could just be leftovers from projects, like leftovers from socks that you've made or something. This is all fingering weight yarn, by the way. I believe it's an 80% superwash merino, 25% nylon blend. that my cousin used. And I love it. I just think it's so great. I think it would be really easy to wear with, you know, just with a jean jacket or something like that would be really cute in the fall, things like that. It's fun, bright colors. I like the purple a lot. I love purple. I really like the two end colors. They're fun together, I think. These two darkest colors. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with this pattern. It was really a joy to make. It took me quite a while because I kept putting it down and not focusing on it very much, but I like it a lot. I think it's great. It's probably going to be too warm to keep on for very long. I think maybe I'll just do the once around and see if I can keep it on while I record the rest of this. See if I can be cool enough. It is warm today, and it's not as warm as it has been lately, but it's still pretty warm. My next finished object is a baby blanket that I had started, well, let me look. I'm not sure now. It was a while ago. It was around the same time that I started the blanket that I showed on my last episode, which was the Stargazer throw, and I started this one around the same time. So I started it mid-April, actually, April 14th. And then I put it on hold for several months, and I just picked it up in the last couple of weeks. So I was making this baby blanket out of traditional granny squares, just using up some leftover scraps that I had from previous baby blankets that I had made. And I just did some calculations and figured out, I think I made one square and measured how much yarn it took to make one square of each of these colors. Of course, I had the least of the middle color, and as I went out, I had more of the colors as I went out. So I figured out that I could make, I made 36 squares for this blanket. So it's a 6 by 6 blanket. And anyway, I just did traditional granny squares. Whenever I make my granny squares, most often, I usually will flip my work every round so that my squares don't begin to skew a little bit. If you make a granny square always working on the right side, your square will kind of have a skew to it. It won't be really square. But if you flip working on the right side and then the wrong side every other round, then you get a more square look. I just changed colors every round, as you can see here. I always crochet over all of my ends, and I also did the join as you go method to join these squares. So it kind of assembled itself as I went along, and I didn't have a lot of finishing work to do when I was all done, so that was great. So I just did 5 rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds for each square, including that joining round. And like I said, it's 6 by 6. So it's not huge, but it's a nice size for a little baby blanket. And then for the border, I just did 2 rounds. The first round I did a single crochet and then chain 3 with this green color. And then I did a final round with just regular granny square stitches. I used, let's see, what did I use? I used an H 5mm hook for the majority of the blanket, but then for the last round, I did go up 1 hook size to an I 5.5mm hook just to keep my border loose so that it would lay nicely. And I'm happy with how that turned out. So I think it's really cute and sweet, and the colors I think look really nice together. So I'm very happy with that. Oh, all of the yarn is worsted weight, 100% acrylic yarn that will be super easy to wash and dry, and will be great for a baby blanket, of course. So if you've watched before, you know that I just love making baby blankets. I don't know who this will go to. I just love keeping a stash of gifts that I can give down the road. So this will be added to it, and my baby blanket collection continues to grow, which is just so nice, because in the past I always try to make baby blankets, but it seems like I don't. I give them away faster than I can make them, but lately I've been making them a lot, and I have a good stash, which makes me feel so happy to have a stash of baby blankets on hand. Okay, I have a random little finished object that I whipped up since I recorded an episode. I made this little ornament. So I was actually trying out a new granny square pattern because I'm thinking about making a Christmas afghan. And I found a pattern, a free pattern for this pattern, which is called the Cactus Flower Granny. It's by Bigú, Osuna. And so you start off with this poinsettia as it's a cactus flower, but I think it looks like a poinsettia. You start off with this as the center of the granny square, and then you work a granny square around it. But I got to this point, I think I started making the granny square, but I just didn't like it as a blanket. I thought it was too bulky by itself, and then the granny square is too open to really give this bulk much support, if that makes sense. So the granny square was so open and loose, but this is quite dense and heavy, and I just didn't think it was a great combo. But I thought that this was beautiful on its own, and so I just added a little chain to one side here to make it into an ornament, which I think is super fun. So again, this is 100% acrylic worsted weight yarn. The pattern I said is free, but it was originally written in Spanish and it's just translated into English. There is a picture tutorial that goes along with it, but it was pretty hard to understand in a few areas. Let's see, I have a lot of notes because I think I made a lot of modifications to it. I used an H 5mm hook. I made it just in one day on August 1st. Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of notes for all of that because I really wanted to make a lot of notes because I was thinking that I would want to make a whole blanket out of this, and so I really wanted to keep notes on what I was doing to modify the pattern so that I could replicate it on my next squares, but in the end I decided I wasn't going to do that. I'm pretty sure that for the green section for the leaves, I made a lot of modifications to that. I kind of followed the same idea as was given for the petal. I think that her leaves are thinner and pointier, and I wanted mine to be thicker and lay more like the petals, I guess. So I kind of replicated the idea of the petals, but if any of you are super interested in knowing how I did this exactly, I could try to send you my notes, but I'm not really sure if I can make sense of them or make them make sense to you. But anyway, it's a fun little ornament that I made, so I'll hang on to that until Christmas time. I have also finished 4 more dishcloths. So I'm continuously working through my cotton stash, and I use a free pattern called the Classic Easy Knit Dishcloth by Carolyn Stanton of Caroselle Design. And I had a whole cone, well, not a whole cone, a partial cone of this yarn that I got at a swap that my library had earlier this year. And it is called Elmore-Pisgah Incorporated was the name on the tag for this, and the colorway is called Shaded Denim. And I was able to make 4 using this yarn. I still have quite a bit of this yarn left, but not enough to make another dishcloth. So I think I'll stripe a dishcloth next with this and another color. For the pattern, I make modifications to it in that I use a smaller needle. I use a US 6 4mm needle, and then I also only increase my stitches to 52 stitches instead of what the pattern calls for before I start decreasing again. I'm not sure why I started doing 52 stitches. I must have just done that a really long time ago, and from then on I've just continued to only increase to 52 stitches. I'm not sure why I picked that number. Also for this one, at the end I only decreased to 4 stitches, and then I bind those 4 stitches off at the end. And I think the original pattern has you decrease to maybe 2 stitches or something like that, but I found that I like to have my 4 corners match as much as possible, and I found that that does a better job of keeping those corners matching. Then I had a skein of yarn that I received from Kim, who sent me a bunch of yarn earlier this year, and this was one of the cotton skeins of yarn that she had sent to me. This is Lily Sugar and Cream in the Earth Ombre colorway, and I only had enough to do 1 dishcloth using this yarn. Again, I do have a little ball. Maybe I'll stripe these 2 together. I don't know if I have enough of this. Maybe I'll play around with what scraps I have to make another dishcloth, probably in these types of colors. But those 4 dishcloths are done. So I've started making dishcloths again. I do them in kind of spurts, and I started making dishcloths again in June. And so these are, now I've made a total of 13 dishcloths since June. So I have more yarn that I'm going to continue to work through, I think, because it's just so nice to have a cotton small project that I can take anywhere in the summertime and just work on it, and it's completely, mindless. I don't have to worry about following a pattern or making mistakes, because it's very, very easy to follow the pattern, of course. So those are all of my finished objects, and I have a few works in progress to show you. The first one I am so incredibly excited about. I started a new afghan. I had some worsted weight 100% acrylic yarns that are kind of leftovers, or I've gotten a few skeins from Kim, that same lady that sent me the yarn that I made the dishcloth out of. I had some leftovers from some projects I've made. Well, most of them are just leftovers from projects. So I had a bunch of scraps, and I kind of put them all together and decided that I really liked the color combination that I had, and I wanted to try to use up some scraps. And my favorite type of blanket to make when using up scraps like that is a crocheted blanket that's worked from the center out, because then you can use the scraps that are the smallest in the middle, of course, and as the blanket grows, then you can use up the yarn that you have the most of as the blanket gets bigger. So that's what I have started, and I came across a designer that I don't remember ever seeing before, but I am just blown away by the patterns that she has, especially the afghan patterns that she has. The pattern is designed by a lady named Helen Shrimpton, and the blanket is called Faith. And it is actually a free pattern. She does have several free patterns, and then she also has some paid for patterns, but all of her blankets are just works of art. They are stunning. And I am enjoying this project so much. I started it on August 2nd, and I've just done the first part. Now I can't remember how many parts there are to this blanket, but it turns out to be quite a large blanket. I think it's 70 inches square, maybe. Can't quite remember, but something like that. But isn't this so gorgeous? I just think it's so much fun. I have learned several new stitches using this pattern or following this pattern, and it's so well written. It's just a joy to make, because she just makes it very, very easy, goes through each thing step by step, and I've enjoyed it so much. So did I say I'm using an I 5.5 millimeter hook for this project? And just look at this texture in here. It's just so amazing. I love just the ruffles here. These petals on this round are so beautifully defined. The way that you do those stitches is just wonderful. I just think it's so great. And like I said, I could use up just the tiniest bits there in the middle part. This row, actually it's made up of 2 rows, and this final row that I've done so far are both made using folding stitches, which I've never done before, but you make a treble crochet US terms for the first round, and then you take that, since it's a long stitch, you take that stitch and you work behind it into the row below, I think, to the back loop of the row below to kind of attach it so that it folds over. If that makes sense, I don't know. So here's the back side. You can kind of see how it's attached, and it just makes this really fun texture. So see, you can see this brown row was also done like that, and it just makes it so fun. I love it. I was worried about this color. If you remember, I made a rainbow ripple blanket using this mint color, as well as some, the light blue and a darker blue that I actually haven't put in here yet. It's a little bit different than this blue. But anyway, I had some leftovers from that baby blanket I had made, and I was worried that maybe it would look a little odd with these colors, but I love it now that I see it in the project. I love that pop of that bright turquoisey color. I'm so excited about this. So the next section will turn this into a square, and then the final blanket is square as well. But I wanted to show this to you at this stage because I just think it's super cool at this stage. But I'm very excited to see it grow as well. I think it's so amazing. I have another one of her blanket patterns that I'm hoping to make next, but we'll see. My plans change a lot, but there is another blanket. Oh, it's called Star of Wonder. It's so beautiful, and I would love to make that. And maybe I'll do that in Christmas colors. Kind of has a Christmassy name anyway, so that would be quite fitting. But anyway, I'm not sure if I have enough yarn to complete this blanket. I may need to go get some more yarns. In fact, I don't have a ton of this mint color left. I only have, well, it looks like a fair amount, but as the blanket grows, of course, it's not going to last much longer. So I only have this much left, and I don't have any other pop of this turquoisey type color. So I might want to get some more of that, and then I might need to get some more neutral colors to add into this blanket. I think I've used everything except for this Windsor blue, which was that other color I put into the baby blanket. It's just a mix of different brands of acrylic worsted weight yarn. So I won't go through them all, but anyway, I'm loving this project so much. It's so much fun, and I love the challenge of it. Really, this one, she says, is really appropriate for a beginner crocheter. I am not a beginner crocheter, but I haven't done a ton of advanced work in crocheting, so, but I don't think that, I don't know, I think that this would be pretty difficult for a beginner, but she does walk through every stitch really clearly. So if you're up for a challenge, I say go for it. It's super fun, for sure. I love it. Okay, and then I also have to take a drink of water. I have also started 2 pairs of socks since I recorded last. The first pair is being held in this beautiful bag that I was gifted by a viewer of this channel named Nicole. This bag was made by Stitchin' You Bags. And these are my Knit Picks Felici August socks. I am knitting through my Knit Picks Felici stash this year, 1 pair of socks per month. And I'm also working through my collection of Crazy Sock Lady Designs patterns that I haven't knit yet. Here are my August socks, and I love this colorway. I think it is so beautiful. This colorway is called Palm Springs, and you can see I've gone through all of the color repeat of that, and I think they're so beautiful. The color transition between this stripe and this stripe is very, very hard to see, but it is a slightly darker shade as you go down here. But I just love the colors in this colorway so much. I think they're beautiful. The pattern that I'm working on is called the Mahogany Run Socks by Kay Litton of Crazy Sock Lady Designs, and it is super fun to work through as well. It has these fun eyelets, and it's basically a ribbed sock, but then it also has these fun little eyelets throughout as well, which I just love working on them. So I am making the medium size, which is a 64 stitch count size. I'm using US 2 millimeter needles, and I'm following the pattern. I haven't made any modifications on these, so the pattern goes all the way around. And I don't know what Kay recommends for the length of the socks, but I usually work through 10 color stripes for the leg of my socks. The cuffs are 2x2 ribbing, and I did that for 20 rounds, as the pattern suggests. So these are just really fun. I'll again do a contrast color for the heels, as I typically do with these socks that I've been making. And I don't know what I'll use for that yet, but I'm sure I have something in my stash that will go well with these colors. So those have been really fun to work on. I'm loving them. And another pair of socks is being held in this cute bag by Danielle of Midwest Stitches, and my son, my 9-year-old son, crocheted this little zipper pull that he attached to this bag. Oh, it just came off. I'll have to fix it. Wasn't a very strong attachment, obviously. It had been on there for about a week, but anyway, I'll reattach it. I am knitting a pair of socks for my mother-in-law. I gifted her a pair of socks, I believe, for her birthday last year, which is in October, and I cannot tell you the number of times that she has commented on how much she loves those socks. And so obviously she is getting more because she has proven herself to be knitworthy by, she just loves the socks that I made for her. So she's getting more. I'm very, very happy to make people more things if they appreciate what I have already gifted them. So I'm making her a pair of socks using, again, Knit Picks yarn. This is Stroll Tweed in the North Sea something, North Sea Heather colorway. And I think it's beautiful. So I cast on 64 stitches again for these, and again did 2x2 ribbing for 20 rounds. And then for the leg of the sock, I'm just doing my own patterning, but it's not hard at all. So instead of doing, for the cuff again, I did 2x2 ribbing, and then I switched to still 2x2 ribbing, but I changed it. So instead of doing knit 2, purl 2, like I did for the cuff, for 5 rounds, I did purl 2, knit 2, and then I switched it again. After 5 rounds, I went back to knit 2, purl 2, and I'm just alternating every 5 rounds. I'm switching which syncopation I'm using. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just switching between purls and knits, and I love the texture that it's giving it. I thought that it would look different, but I love how it looks. I think it's cool. It really gives it a fun texture, I think. So again, I'm using US 2 millimeter needles for these. And yeah, they're really fun to work on. I'm enjoying them a lot. And I love working with this tweed yarn. It's so much fun. So those are an easy project that I have on the go as well. So I'm hoping to get these done and give to her for her birthday again this October. Now I have 3 of my Scrappy blankets that I've worked on a little bit lately, and I wanted to give an update on those. The first is my Granny's Daughter Afghan, which is pictured here on the front cover of this Scrap Yarn Afghans Book 2 leaflet by Leisure Arts that you can see I got for 50 cents at my local thrift store. And this design is the Granny's Daughter. It's a beautiful design, but super easy, I think. At this point especially, it's super easy. It's designed by Nancy Fuller, and I can link to this pattern. It is available on Ravelry. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I can link to it on Ravelry. I'm not sure if it links you somewhere else or something like that. But anyway, the first step for this blanket is to make a total of 836 one-round granny squares. And again, I'm using worsted weight acrylic yarn from leftovers. It only takes an arm's length for me to be able to crochet a square for this pattern. So I'm able to use up all my little bits of yarn that are too small to go into anything else. Last time I gave you an update on this project, I'm pretty sure I had made these squares and I showed these off to you. And this is a total of 400 squares that are being kept in this bag. And since then, I've made another 200. So it's kind of hard to give you an update on this project, but I just kind of like to update you every once in a while. So I'm at a total of 600 squares right now. And so I'm, you know, getting closer. I am so excited for the day when I have all of the little squares done and I can start piecing them all together. But the way that is worked is in strips. So you can see you just make a strip, and then I think it's a kind of a join as you go method as well. I'm pretty sure it is. I haven't read through it in detail recently, so I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, I'm very, very excited to get to the point where I can start piecing it all together. I think that will be so much fun. But it's really fun to work on these as well. Chris's grandma, my husband Chris's grandma, gave me some scraps that she had on hand. She doesn't knit or crochet, but she used yarn a while ago to tie quilts together. And so she had some yarn. There was some Christmassy colored yarn, and I really like this. Here's one. I really like this colorway that she gave me. I have no idea where what any of this yarn is, you know. It's just her leftovers from projects that she was working on, but it was fun to be able to use up some of her scraps as well. There was one, oh, it's up here on the top. I really like the colors in this one too. It's very vintagey looking. These rusty brown orangey colors. I like that yarn a lot too. It's very like 70s looking to me. So those have been fun to work on, and for all of those I use whatever I forget, a G 4mm hook. I'm pretty sure. This calls it an F, but mine's a G. I don't know. Crochet hooks are kind of funny that way. Sometimes they just vary, I think. I've seen that on other things too, where on one hook it'll be a different letter than another, but anyway, it's a 4mm hook. Okay, my next scrappy afghan that I want to update you on is my Excavation blanket. And this thing is so huge at this point. So I have been working on this blanket since 2017. It is a free pattern by Jana Pihota. I add in, whenever I finish a fingering weight project, if I have enough leftovers from that project, I add a color stripe, which is a 2-row stripe, to this blanket. And it's so much fun to be able to do that. Last time I showed this blanket off, I was down here where this beautiful progress keeper that Erica of Rose Opal Knits made and gifted to me, where that's marking. So I've added about 3 inches, 4 inches maybe, to this blanket since I showed it off last, and you can see the colors I added here from the Venation shawl. I forgot to mention that on this one, on the 1st and 9th colors that you added to the shawl, I almost ran out. On the 9th one, I had a tail like 8 inches long. That was all I had left, so it was close. I was afraid I was going to run out before, I was afraid I was going to lose my yarn chicken game, but I did not. Anyway, so this is just such a fun pattern to work on. When you start a new row, you leave a long tail, and then you work across and back again, and then you leave a long tail again, so that this fringe is left on both sides. I'm making a modification to this pattern because the original pattern calls for you to work 1/2 and then switch sides so that the other half of your blanket will be showing the wrong side, which doesn't look quite as clean. So it would be more like this. So half of your blanket would show the right side and then half would show the wrong side. And I didn't want that. I wanted my entire blanket to show the right side on one side and the wrong side on the other side. So the first half is made in garter stitch. Normally you're just knitting all of the stitches and increasing every row. But when I got to the halfway point, then I started to purl all my stitches and decrease every row. So it's a lot of purling for me for the second half, but I personally don't mind purling. It's not a bother to me at all. I enjoy it just as much as I enjoy knitting. So I know that's not for everybody, but that's just what I decided to do for my blanket. You could also make two separate pieces and then join them together if you wanted to make it so that it looked like the one that I'm making does. Or of course you could just follow the pattern and have it half and half. But I'll have to stand up to show you this one because it is so large. You will be able to see a bunch of markers along this blanket, and each of those markers, or progress keepers I should say, is marking a different year. So I started down in this corner at the bottom, and I worked up, and so you might be able to see those little progress keepers marking each year that I worked on it. And like I said, I started it in 2017. Oh, it's so hard to hold it up at this point. But look, it's so close to being done. I only have this one little corner left. I did count though, and I think I have about 160 stitches still on the needle, so it will still take quite a while to finish it probably, because I'll need to add in, I guess, about 80 more colors. I'm guessing 80 more stripes, if I am thinking right, because each color stripe reduces the stitch pattern by 2 stitches, because each row reduces by 1 stitch. You do each color for 2 rows. Anyway, it might be a long time before, or it might be, I'm thinking maybe next year I'll finish this, I would guess. But anyway, I'm loving it. I just adore this pattern so much. I am quite confident that when I finish this blanket, I will just start another one and continue the process of making this blanket for the foreseeable future. I'm just going to continue working on this type of a blanket as long as I'm knitting and crocheting. I think that's my plan right now anyway. I love it so much. I think it's so beautiful and stunning. It's just so much fun to have kind of on the go at all times. It's so pretty. I just love the way it looks so much. And the feel of it is really great because it's just fingering weight, but garter stitch, and it's just a great feeling, I think. I am using US 2.75 millimeters for this project. And I wanted to tell you how many, at the total of the largest point of this blanket, I had a total of 618 stitches on the needles before I started decreasing. So I've gone a long ways since that point to be down to 160 now. So yeah, it's very exciting to see the growth of that blanket. Okay, my last scrappy blanket that I want to share with you is my granny stripe blanket. Oh, by the way, I do have an exact start date on the Excavation blanket. I started that on November 17th of 2017. Okay, for the crazy granny stripe blanket that I'm making here, I started this in 2020, July of 2020. I followed a tutorial by Bella Coco to learn how to start this blanket. And for this blanket, I am using my tiny, tiny little baby scraps. So I put anything into this blanket that measures about 12 inches in length or up to, and then, so that's the smallest, of course, that I put into this blanket. And then I go up to 3 grams. So if anything measures less than 3 grams, it goes into this blanket. And last time I shared this was probably about 6 months ago. I don't work on this blanket very often. I just wait until I have a big pile of scraps that I've collected, and then I add them all at one time. So here is a marker or progress keeper that's marking where I was the last time I showed this project off. And I was able to add about 4 inches to this blanket too, I'd say. And I just love it. It's so much fun. This blanket won't be done for probably 20 years or something, but it's so gratifying to work on this project because it does just use up all of those itty bitty little scraps that would most likely go into the trash, especially those tiny little 12-inch scraps that really only make a couple of, for example here, this little green right here, that's just one yarn, and it didn't, I guess maybe it made 1.5 little granny clusters. I use the Russian join to join yarns when I change them, and that works really well, especially for crochet projects. I think it's not very noticeable when you use the Russian join method, and it's nice and secure, and I don't have any ends to weave in at the end that way, so that's great. And I just love how this looks. It's so colorful and fun, and it's just a joy to work on and see how it's looking. I love it. I love it so much. It's so much fun. I think I say this every time I show this off, but I just love getting to work on this. And like I said, I don't work on it very often because it just takes me a while to, gain enough yarn to add to it, to collect enough yarn to add to it. But it's such a joy when I get the chance to work on it. I am using a C 2.75 millimeter hook for this project. And let's see, did I say? I started with a chain of 300 for this blanket. I think that's about it. So those are all of the works in progress that I have to share with you all today. Like I mentioned, I got a surprise gift in the mail that was so wonderful. It came from a lady that watches this podcast that lives in the UK, and she had won a prize for the Make 9 2023 Mal a little while ago, and so then she sent me a gift package that blew the prize that I sent to her was nothing in comparison to what she sent me. So I was just blown away and so very grateful. So these came from a lady named Nikki, and she sent me, there were several sweets and some chocolate and some tea in the package, which we all have enjoyed very, very much. We still have the tea, but all the sweets I think are pretty much gone. I shared them. So, and then she also sent me some sock yarns that I'm so excited about. The first one is by King Cole. It's called Summer. And it is a 55% bamboo, 37% cotton, and 8% PBT, which was in the Christmas socks that I recently finished. So the PBT is like a polyester, a form of polyester. It has this color striping pattern, which is so beautiful. And it's 100 grams of fingering weight yarn. Oh, the color for this one is called Neptune. Then she sent me this gorgeous, bright, rainbowy colored yarn. It's so beautiful. This is by West Yorkshire Spinners, signature 4-ply. And this is in the Rum Paradise colorway. This is 75% wool, 25% nylon. I have been fortunate enough to be gifted other West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I absolutely love it. It's just got a really great rustic feel to it, and these colors are so amazing. So these will be super fun to knit. Look at the difference in size of these are both 100 grams, but it's just funny how they vary according to how they're made up. This one's even bigger, I think. Ooh, same, 100 grams though. This one is also King Cole, Zigzag 4-ply, and it says it's suitable for socks right on there. Again, this is 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon, and this is in the Frappuccino colorway. Beautiful. So much fun. This again feels so wonderfully and woolly. And the last one she sent is in these beautiful pinks and purples. And it is by Stylecraft, Head Over Heels Boho. And it has another beautiful self-striping patterning to it. And again, 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon. And the shade is 3127 Arno. A-R-N-O. So those are all of the yarns she sent my way. They're so beautiful, and I am so excited to make these into some beautiful socks down the road. So thank you so much, Nikki. That was such a special gift to receive in the mail. It was so unexpected and so thankful. It was so sweet of you. I was blown away by your generosity. So thank you so much. Okay, lastly, I just wanted to let you all know about, just give you a little bit of an update on some of the projects that I submitted to my county fair, which was a couple of weeks ago. So I submitted a lot of things for this county fair. I think this was probably the most I ever submitted. But like I mentioned on my last episode, I was just kind of motivated as I looked through the list of things that I could submit to make a few little things, as I showed on my last episode. And so I had quite a few things that I could enter this year. You're allowed to enter one item per category, and they have several categories for both knitting and crocheting. So anyway, that was really fun to be able to enter several different things. But I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that got special awards, and then a few of the things that, well, let me explain how judging works for the county fair. First of all, I was greatly privileged to be able to help out with judging, which doesn't seem very fair, does it? But I wasn't a judge. I was just helping out by being a scribe. So I had last year, the lady that runs the needlework section of the county fair, she's always there. The fair lasts for 5 days, is that right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 6 days really. And she is there the entire time. Anytime I stop by, she's always sitting in the needlework section, you know, the craft barn. And I said to her last year, can I help you at all? I'd love to help you out because I just feel really badly for her always sitting there constantly. And so I thought maybe she would like me to help her by sitting there for her so she could have a break every once in a while. But she said, even last year, she said, well, I'd really like you to help out when we're in the judging process to write down what the judge says, to be a scribe for the judge. And I said, well, yeah, I could certainly do that. And then again this year, I called her before the fair and just wanted to touch base with her and remind her that I'm willing to help out. And she again said that she would like me to scribe. And I said, yes, I could definitely do that. So I got to go on Saturday morning when the judging went on. And the lady that was judging the knitting and crocheting, I basically just worked with her, handed her the things that were to be judged, and then whatever she said, I wrote down the notes of what she said, and then she would determine what place the item got. So the way that our county fair works anyway, I'm not sure if every county fair is like this or not, but our county fair is the judging for the county fair works, why can't I say this? The way that the judging for our county fair works is that each item is given a first, second, or third place ribbon. It's kind of like getting an A, B, or C. So the first place ribbons is basically the judge can't find anything wrong with it, or basically nothing wrong with it. It's, it's just, a really high quality item. If it gets a second place item, or if it gets a second place ribbon, a red ribbon, that means that it's good work, but the judge found that there was something wrong with it. And then third place would be, I suppose, for something that is really badly made. The judge that judged the needlework category gave out no third place ribbon. So everything was either given a first or second place. Then beyond that, there are some special awards. So there is, the last 2 years, I've won a very special award by getting the Best in County. 2 years ago, I got the first place Best in County for any knitted or crocheted item for this blanket that sits behind me here. Can you see it? Not very well. My crocheted hexie blanket won the super great first place award, which was such an honor. And then last year I made a crocheted amigurumi unicorn, and that won the 3rd place best in county for needlework. So that was a great honor. But then also there are some other special awards that are given, like best sweater, best knitted or crocheted sweater, for example. And there's several of those types of awards. So you're given the first, ribbon is 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place, and then you may also win an extra award. So I just wanted to go over a few of the items that I got an extra special award for, and then I also wanted to share a few of the items that I got a 2nd place award for, just so you can kind of see the contrast. I'm not going to go through everything since I submitted so much, and most of the things that I submitted were good enough to get a 1st place award, but 3 of the items that I submitted only got a 2nd place award, and then also 3 of my items that I submitted got an extra special award, so it evens out. So I'll go over the things that I got an extra special award for first, and then I'll kind of go over my 2nd place items so that you can kind of see how the judge, I just thought it might be interesting for you to be able to see how the judge looked at the items that I submitted. It was such an honor to be able to be there with the judge, to hear what she had to say and to see what she was looking at. And I even said to the superintendent of the craft section, or the needlework section, I said, I feel like I kind of have an unfair advantage now because I've been able to hear and see what the judge is looking for when she's judging things. And she said, well, anybody can volunteer. You volunteered for the job and you got it. And so she helped me feel not so bad, because I was like, I kind of feel like I'm in an unfair position now. But she said that it was completely fair. So the first item that got a special award is the afghan that I shared on my last episode that I gifted to my husband's aunt. And I don't have it with me, but I'll insert a photo here. The Stargazer Throw by Alex Tavel of 2 of Wands. That won the best crocheted or knitted afghan in our county fair. Then I also submitted this crocheted pillow that I would have shared several episodes ago. I'm not exactly sure when I finished this. I could look it up, but I don't have it handy. So anyway, I crocheted this pillow cover. I had originally started to make this pattern as a blanket, but I decided to turn it into a pillow cover. Anyway, this one won the Best Sofa Pillow Award. And then lastly, this little crocheted dress that I showed off on my last episode also won the award of Best Crocheted or Knitted Baby Article. So that was very nice to get those special awards. And then the few things that I got a 2nd place prize on were this Musselburgh hat, a pattern by Ysolda Teague, that I modified. This is a hat that I made for my daughter back in January. And I modified the pattern to include some of the stitches from the, what's that shawl called? By Stephen West. Exploration Station. I knitted an Exploration Station for my daughter for her birthday in January as well. And then I made her this hat with the leftovers that I had and included some of the stitch patterns from the Exploration Station into this Musselburgh hat. And I got a 2nd place prize on, or ribbon on this item because of my join. So the judge said that I should learn how to make a jogless join. Now, she's judging all of this stuff, and of course, like I said, I submitted several things, but of course I couldn't let her know what I made. I just had to sit there quietly. And but I was talking to her a little bit. I mean, she would talk to me about some things, and I would, like, if I saw, it was kind of hard to keep my mouth shut when I saw something amazing. I would be like, oh my word, this is so beautiful. Not for my own things, of course, but for other things. Anyway, she was kind of talking to me, asking me if I knitted and crocheted and things like that. So we were kind of talking a little bit back and forth. And anyway, when she said that the person who made this needed to learn how to do a jogless join, I have tried doing jogless joins, and I don't find that any of them that I have tried are very effective. Even when people show them on other knitting podcasts and they say, look, I did a jogless join, I don't think they're that jogless. I mean, I think they're still noticeable. Maybe they're not as noticeable as this one is, but I just don't think they're worth it. I don't think it's effective, and I don't know. I just don't really see the point. So anyway, I asked her after she said the person needs to learn how to do a jogless join. I said, have you found a technique that works really well for a jogless join? And she goes, no, it's pretty hard to get a jogless join. So I was like, well then, why? I don't know. I was just like, why are you saying that then if you know that it's pretty hard to get a nice jogless join? But anyway, I got a second place for this because it doesn't have a jogless join. I guess I could have done helical knitting or something maybe. I don't know. It's okay though. She just said, if there's anything that I see in an item that she can see room for improvement in, then she gives it second place. So it's kind of hard for me not to say something. It was hard for me not to say something more, but I had to try to be quiet. And then I also submitted the Mayberry cardigan, which is a beautiful design that I test knitted for Amy Loudon of Taylor S Studio. And I don't believe that this pattern has been released yet. I haven't checked in the last few days, but last I checked, it hadn't been released yet. But anyway, I had told you all that there was, since this was a test knit, there was a mistake in the original pattern that I was sent when you start the sleeve. And I can see it online here. But I thought it wasn't going to be noticeable enough. It's not as noticeable in person as it is on camera. But the judge noticed it immediately. So she said, there was a mistake right here. And she was trying to look at it and see, I can't figure out what the lady did that made, I can't figure out what she did here. And I, again, wanted to speak up and say, well, I should have purled instead of knitted, but I didn't know. I didn't catch that mistake. The mistake has been caught and changed in the original pattern, but it's on both sleeves. The judge actually only noticed it on one of the two sleeves, but still gave this pattern or this submission a second place ribbon because of that. And then the last thing that got a second place ribbon is this little pot holder that I submitted, because the way that I would use this pot holder is just to hold pots, not as a oven mitt. I would not use this as an oven mitt to grab something out of the oven, but I would set this on my counter and I would put a hot pot on it to protect my counters. But the judge said that she did not think that this was a very good pot holder because there are holes in it, and she said that you would burn your fingers if you used this. So she just gave it a second place ribbon because of its impracticality. I again would argue with that because I wouldn't use it as an oven mitt. I would never use it to pick up a pot, but again, I couldn't say anything. So anyway, but it was, again, super fun to be able to be part of the judging process and to just get some insight into how they look at an item and, how they look, what they're looking for when they're judging it. So it was really interesting and enjoyable. So I said that I would be glad to do that again next year if they need my help again. So we'll see if I do that again. But anyway, like I said, the majority of the things that I entered did get first place, and they, the comments from the judge were things like nice even stitching, or she liked the colors I chose or the pattern that I chose. And so the majority of the comments were very, very kind and encouraging. So I don't mean to focus on the things that I didn't get a first place prize on, but I just kind of wanted to give you all an idea of different things that they're looking for and what kinds of things they're looking for. And I didn't want to go over everything, but just kind of wanted to give you some highlights from both the good and the bad. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing about those few things. That's all that I have to share with you all today. I hope that you enjoyed watching this episode, and I hope you all are doing really well. Take care. Bye-bye.